Halo Infinite Season 3 Echoes Within launched March 7th of this year, and as of now, it's almost at its end and Season 4 is just around the corner. So as usual, it is time for our regularly scheduled retrospective going over all of the major things that happened during Halo Infinite Season 3. Keeping the same format of the winter update video though, I will be going over them not in timeline order, but rather categorizing everything and talking about everything in its individual categories. I definitely think this helped the flow of the video last time and meant that I didn't miss anything important, and hopefully it has the same impact this time around. You all seem to really enjoy the winter update one too, so hopefully I can still deliver the same quality of video and maybe even something a little bit better. But yeah, just like last time, we'll be going over all the different categories and I'll be giving an overall rating of the season at the end, so if you're curious to see what rating I give it, make sure you stick around till then. Anyway, if you do enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new here. Now without wasting any more of your time, let's jump straight in. Starting things off, we have the cosmetics section. In this, I'll obviously be going over the Battle Pass and various other cosmetics that are in the game, additions to the store and how that's changed this season. And although I will briefly talk about the things that we earned in events, the events themselves will be covered in their own section, as they were just more than cosmetics. At least, some of them were. But anyway, starting things off, we have the Season 3 Battle Pass, once again delivering 100 tiers of cosmetic content. Some of these tiers were definitely still filler. We had the same emblems be broken up and unlocked 4 separate times, there was still double XP boosts and challenge swaps, and this is unsurprising. Challenge swaps definitely don't feel as necessary anymore considering the challenges are a lot easier, and double XP also doesn't feel very important considering how easy it is to level up. There was one major difference this time around, well I considered it pretty major and a few other people did too. When you purchased the Battle Pass, regardless if you brought the premium one which gives you a few extra tiers, not extra unlockable tiers, you started at like tier 20 something. Just the same with Season 1 and 2. Whether you brought that version or the normal Battle Pass, you got the red steel splinter coating for free instantly. This wasn't a tier 1 reward or anything, it was just a purchase bonus with the Battle Pass, and I thought this was a nice addition, and hopefully this continues with the 4th season and any other future ones. The coating was pretty decent too, and you got it for every core that was currently in the game, so I would like to see something similar. We know that in the 4th season, we will get the new battle rifle model as a purchase bonus with any Halo Championship bundle, so maybe there'll be a weapon model purchase bonus for the Battle Pass. As for the Battle Pass itself, it focused on one of the 2 new armor cores. The Battle Pass focused on the Mirage armor, otherwise known as the SPI. This is an armor core or a set of armor that was originally introduced to us through some of the Halo novels, and personally it's far from my favourite in the game. It did have some cool pieces, there was a few pieces that I didn't like at first but did grow an attachment to, such as the attachment on the extender helmet, but I definitely don't think this Battle Pass was as solid as Season 2's. One thing that I did think was an improvement was the increase in weapon coatings, as Season 1 had 0 and Season 2 only had 2 of them. Having some more weapon coatings I did think was a nice thing to see, and it seems like weapon customization is going even further in the next season. There was some cool armor effects, and obviously there was plenty of cool armor pieces. I did like the armor we got for the Mark 7, we got the Deadeye helmet which I think looks pretty good, we got Mercury, we got Flanker, we did get some solid armor pieces, and there was a good chunk of variety, even if a lot of the Mirage helmets do seem to have that fishbowl-like look to them, a bit like EVA. But the core itself was still a cool addition, and obviously every player got it for free. You didn't need to unlock it in the Battle Pass, you just logged in during Season 3 and you got both of the new armor cores for free. The second armor core, which is this season's Fracture core, was the Chimera armor. This did have an event with it, and we will talk about that a little bit later on. But as for the core itself, I'm not a huge fan. When we first saw it, I did think it looked really interesting, but most of the things we actually unlocked or could purchase for this core didn't really interest me at all. There is one set of armor I did purchase for it, which is the Grendel set, and that is only because it released alongside the Menachite bundle, which I did want, and didn't want to wait for it to be released on its own. The Mero helmet on the core was pretty cool though, and that one was free. But getting back on track and going back to the Battle Pass, I do think in some regards it was an improvement. Like I said, the increase of weapon coatings was nice to see. Some of the coatings we did get, there was a nice bit of variety. We still had some of the flashy and colourful ones, but there was still some more militaristic, more grounded coatings. However, like I said, there is still a lot of filler, and I definitely didn't like this one as much as I liked the Season 2 Battle Pass. Heading over to the store, there is quite a bit to talk about. First of all, the store did get a bit of a UI change when the season released, and did have an increase in the amount of slots on the store from 4 to 5, which isn't a huge difference, but it did feel like a little bit of an impactful change. We also had the return of dailies, and they did actually last throughout the entire season this time. We also had a new kind of bundle that rotated in between the week. It obviously changed on Tuesday like everything else, but also changed on Friday, which is why I make the shop videos on Tuesdays and Fridays now. And although this slot was a nice little change at first, we seem to be getting new things with it pretty much every week. This did quickly change, and we just started seeing repeats with both the daily and the Friday bundle. The daily specifically just tended to be the strong iris or atomic flint coating, which I know myself and many others are very tired of. The Halo Championship stuff, that store page did also get a bit of a UI change. There wasn't any regional based bundles like there was with the other seasons, but the new HCS bundles themselves were fine. I do kind of like the optic coating, and some of the other ones are quite interesting. Phases really stands out, but for 1,000 credits I don't necessarily think these bundles were great. But again, I guess just like every other season with the Halo Championship bundles, it's just whether or not you want to support your favourite team. Later on in the season, some of these bundles did see a price reduction for one of the Halo Championship events. This was just a couple of weeks ago. Actually, it might have been last week, I can't quite remember, where the bundles were on sale for 800 credits each. This did have me a little bit tempted to pick one of them up, but I did decide against it in the end. I think had we got the coating for at least the Mark 7 and Mirage, although obviously it would be much better to get it for every core, if we had it for at least those two, then I probably would have considered it, but only getting it for Mirage, a core that I wasn't a huge fan of anyway, it was definitely a skip for me. The biggest change to the store would come a little bit later on in the season, where we sort of had the introduction of a catalogue system. This applied to almost every single Season 1 and Season 2 bundle, where you could just browse through the armor hall, look at a piece of armor you liked, clicked on it, and it would guide you to a store page where you could purchase that bundle. This meant the return of some of the Reach bundles that people were begging for during the winter update, and it also means you can pick up any of your favourite Mark 7, Rikshase, Eagle Strike, or Yoroi sets. There was a few things that didn't seem to come back as a part of this catalogue system, which I did think was a bit weird. Mostly just a couple of individual coatings or emblems or some random little bits. But for the most part, everything was back. This didn't apply to Season 3 stuff yet, but I have a feeling it will next season. It was cool to see some of the bundles actually remain at their sale price too, rather than returning to their original full prices. Stuff like Zvezda, rather than coming back for 2,000 credits, came back for 1,500, and I think Firefall has remained at 200 credits too. This itself was a really positive change and did receive a lot of praise. It means whenever I want now I can pick up that Fascinator helmet attachment that I've wanted for quite a while, but now I don't feel like I'm going to miss out, so I can just pick that up whenever I really feel like it. Hopefully next season we do see the Season 3 bundles be made permanently available. This does especially help out Fracture cores, as the cosmetics for those are limited time. One thing that I definitely should comment on is the elephant in the room, and yes, there was no cross-core during Season 3, which was really disappointing. Various leaks did indicate to the fact there would be some level of cross-core this season. We thought certain coatings would be made cross-core, but this just never happened. One important thing about Chimera that a lot of people picked up on and kind of agitated a lot of people, and I'll explain why, was the fact that with Chimera, the chest pieces and other attachments all applied your armor coating. This is something people have wanted for every other core, for all the other armor, as you usually just have some grey piece of metal slapped to your chest that doesn't blend with your armor coating. But for Chimera, this didn't share that similarity. In fact, Chimera also had a couple of armor pieces that applied your visor instead, which was really weird to see, but it was kind of interesting. And it seems like going forward, if I've seen this correctly, that the new Mark 7 armor in Season 4 will apply your armor coating, and it looks like some of the stuff on the new Hazmat core will too. This does likely mean the older stuff won't, but at least the new stuff will start to, and hopefully they might change that in the future, and some of the old stuff will also apply your coating too. But yeah, it was definitely weird to see this only happen for Chimera and not even Mirage, which was the Battle Pass core. Overall, there was some cool things regarding customization in this season. Mostly some of the new armor pieces themselves were quite cool, but it did feel a bit lacking in the sense there wasn't really any major changes. We still couldn't apply coatings to banished weapons or vehicles. We still had the uncoloured chest attachments. There was no cross core or anything like that. But at least we did get some cool pieces like Deadeye, like Menachite. And although I think the Season 3 Battle Pass itself was fine, it definitely could have been a bit better. I really hope in the future they offer a bit more than just the 1,000 credits, as similar to other live service games like Fortnite, which offers 1,500, 300 of which are free. Or maybe introduce a second currency alongside credits like rec points, not specifically rec points, just a free currency that you can earn to purchase things off the store. That would be nice. Our next section is about the events, as this feels like a pretty natural transition talking about the customization, as we'll be talking about more cosmetic content here. The season did launch with its first narrative event, Mindfall, which allowed us to unlock more cosmetics for the Mirage armor core, including a helmet, a coating, a helmet attachment, some shoulder pads, and a little bit more. This event was tied to the narrative and you did get a cutscene for completing it, but I will talk about the narrative itself in a separate section too. As far as the event mode goes, there wasn't really a specific mode for the event. Instead, we had the unlimited playlists. First of all, we had Arena Unlimited, which focused on 2 of the new arena maps, Cliffhanger and Chasm. Again, more on them later. However, these did feature the only new game mode this season, which was Escalation Slayer. Every other mode that we got during Season 3 was a game mode variant, but I'll talk about them in their own section too. You'll definitely get tired of me saying more about that later. This event was an okay start to the season, but again, with there not being a specific event mode, it did leave me a little bit disappointed. I know so far the event modes on the game have had a mixed reception, and that's just because most of the event modes haven't been very good. But personally, I would prefer if there was a mode tied to the event, you just didn't have to play them to complete the event pass. Maybe just limit that to the ultimate reward. That way people can still play the way they want to play, still unlock the cosmetics for the event, but if they want to unlock the ultimate reward, then they have to play that event game mode. But like I say, the event was a decent start. We had some narrative stuff, we had some decent cosmetics that definitely helped people unlock some things for Mirage. And it was cool to see the new Unlimited playlists. Week 1 was Arena, however the second week, which was still the event, was actually Big Team Battle Unlimited, which let us play on the new Big Team Battle map, Oasis. And that basically sums up Mindfall. The second event in the season was the introduction of the new Fracture event, Firewall. This really wasn't that great. There was no event game mode or anything really. There was nothing that expanded the narrative in-game. However, there was a story on Waypoint that you could read that was like kind of canon, but also not. I'm not going to get too much into the details because it was a little bit confusing. There wasn't really anything to do in-game with this event, it was just unlocking cosmetics, all of which were for the Chimera core. We'll obviously have stuff like visors and weapon skins, but the event focused on the Chimera armor core. There was one helmet which was Mero, and then you unlock some shoulders, a chest piece, a few other things. But the event definitely didn't feel very special. I was really hoping there'd be some kind of Forge map tied to it. Would have been nice even if we just got a variant of a pre-existing map that kind of had that Chimera Firewall theme into it. Or even if they just gave us a Slayer variant where everyone had hard light weapons just because the Chimera core is made by the creator or something like that. But this event was very lackluster because it didn't feel like an event, it was just here's some limited time cosmetics that you can unlock a couple of times this season. The final event was Sight Unseen, and this was our second narrative event and was the only other event during the season. Again, you unlocked more cosmetics for the Mirage armor. We had the Dead Space looking helmet, which was kind of cool, and some other decent armor pieces. It also expanded upon the narrative. We had a cutscene when the event started and also one when it ended, and this one set up Season 4. The narrative cutscenes here were actually really damn cool, but again, more on that later. As for the event game mode, it was once again the Unlimited playlist, the Big Team Battle Unlimited playlist specifically, but it wasn't the same one we had at the beginning of the season. This time it focused on Super Escalation Slayer, which was like Escalation Slayer, but with weapon variants instead. Overall though, the event did just feel pretty lackluster. The cutscenes and cosmetics were cool, but because the playlist was just a variant of a game mode we'd already played on a map that now didn't feel very new, it was really disappointing. It would have been cool to have some changes to whatever map, or maybe have a new map entirely, or maybe we could have gotten a Forge Big Team Battle Community Collection playlist. I don't think the event was bad by any means, but this was the same time that Fortnite got its amazing Star Wars event, so it was really disappointing playing that and then booting up Halo Infinite to see nothing really new. And that basically sums up all of the events this season. There was no secret event like Noble Intention, but I don't think the events were awful this season. They did leave a lot to be desired, and hopefully Season 4 picks up on that. Next up, we have the narrative, and there is a lot more to talk about here than there was in Season 2, as overall the story of this season was much more engaging and had a lot more going on. The season actually opens up on a recap cutscene, which goes over some of the events from the campaign and the other multiplayer stuff we've experienced, which basically just stems down to the discovery of Aratus. We then get a proper cinematic cutscene which goes over Spartan Din a little bit more and teaches us a bit more about his character. It slightly delves into his past and also shows how Aratus is kind of toying with him. And this cinematic was really fun. The first event awards us with a cutscene which actually shows our Spartan, even if it's only for a brief second, and also shows us a conversation between Eklund and Din as they're talking about the stuff that Aratus was on about. It also gives us a discovery of something on Livefire, and actually changes how that map looks very slightly, but this was a cool detail. It reveals that one of the doors actually has the Oni logo on it and that it had been painted over, but this is revealed by an explosion from a grenade. So it instantly gives us that implication that the Academy is some old Oni base. And we finally find out what's behind that secret door with the Sight Unseen event. We have the first cutscene, which is our Spartan finding out whatever Din's up to. We see the door as Din's trying to pry it open, we give him a hand, and we jump down into the depths. However, it's not until the second cutscene when you complete the event that you actually find out what's down here. We find some modified Mirage armor and learn that Aratus has actually corrupted this armor, which leads into next season and actually sets up the Infection game mode. It was unfortunate there was no PvE content or anything like that to help expand this narrative a little bit more, but the cutscenes were much more enjoyable, and they definitely weren't as disappointing as just Eklund standing there in the shooting range talking to you. It actually made myself and most other players actually want to find out what happens next. And hopefully Season 4's narrative is also pretty enjoyable. I am a tiny bit skeptical as we didn't see anything regarding the story or any cutscenes during the Season 4 trailer. Although I do just believe this is because we don't have any full cinematic, but there will be cutscenes that will probably have our Spartans in, which I know is good enough for most people. Our next category is maps, and of course we'll be starting with Oasis, the brand new Big Team Battle map. We're starting with this because it's actually in the narrative cutscenes. You'll notice in the cinematic with Din and Aratus, you see a big Forerunner tower in the background, and this is on the Oasis map. It's also present in the main menu too. Anyway, after going about 10 months with having no new Big Team Battle maps or content like that, unless you include Forge stuff, but that can only be played in customs and not in matchmaking, it was very relieving to have not just a new Big Team Battle map, but one that was extremely fun too. I would definitely argue Oasis is currently the best Big Team Battle map in the game. It's got enough space where vehicle combat feels very fun and vehicles actually feel useful. It's got good variety in weapons available, the bases are well designed, and the environments are gorgeous. Overall, Oasis is a solid map, and hopefully we get more like it in the future. As for arena maps, there was two newcomers here, starting with Chasm. This is another Forerunner map, and it's actually based off some of the environments you come across in the campaign. Both of the arena maps are designed for much more casual play in mind and aren't designed for competitive whatsoever, hence the reason they're not present in any of those competitive playlists and why you'll never see any of them played at HCS event. And I do understand why, but I still think Chasm is a fun map, even if it didn't have the best reception. I think it's gorgeous to look at as well, and Capture the Flag on here is always a joy to play, especially with friends. I think it definitely does some creative things with layout, and it's definitely clearly a successor to Boarding Action. Although both maps aren't the same, you can sort of spot some similarities between them. As for our other arena map, we have Cliffhanger. This one is definitely quite a big one. It feels similar in scale to something like Launchside, and definitely feels like it'd benefit more from maybe 6v6, 8v8 gameplay than 4v4. That being said though, it's still another one that is actually pretty fun to play. I actually quite enjoy One Flag on here, and again, the map looks great. It also does some fun things with its layout and its design. And overall, I'd argue Season 3 has the best maps that we've seen added to the game so far. When it comes to game modes, this season we only had one new addition, and that is Escalation Slayer. This is basically Halo's gun game. Your team starts off with like rocket launchers and cinder shots, you get more kills and your weapons change as you generate enough points. You have normal escalation and core escalation Slayer, which just has like different spawning weapons, and I don't think you have equipment on core escalation Slayer. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the mode. It does work fine, like it's enjoyable sometimes, and it was nice to receive a bit more of a casual mode. That being said, at times it still feels like an absolute sweatfest. But as the only new game mode, it was a little bit disappointing. It did later have another variation, which was Super Escalation Slayer, and this is essentially the same mode, but now you have the campaign weapon variant of all the weapons. You had the tracking version of the rocket launcher, you had the striker sidekick, which is the best weapon in the game. And Super Escalation Slayer was also, it was fine, like it was fun for a little bit, but it did get a bit repetitive pretty quickly. I think it would be cool to get De-Escalation Slayer at some point. But that basically summarizes all we got as far as new game modes go, technically. We did also receive Big Team Heavies, which although not a complete new game mode, was definitely quite refreshing to see. Big Team Heavies is something that is pretty much present in every other Halo title. It's Big Team Battle, but they ramp up the big in Big Team Battle. Vehicles are more frequent, you have different spawning weapons, and power equipment are much more present too. For comparison, on high power you would have 2 Banshees and a Wasp spawning at the bases. It was very hectic, but it was pretty fun. My only complaint with Big Team Heavies is that you have battle rifle starts, and personally I'm not a fan of that. I don't think it's very fun getting beamed by 4 people halfway across the map because everyone spawns with a weapon that is just way too good for Big Team Battle. When the battle rifle is a bit more limited, it's more enjoyable, but I think it would be better if they just went back to sidekick starts for the Heavies version. Granted, yes, that is just me personally, I just don't think battle rifle starts works very well for Big Team Battle in this game. Other than that though, Heavies is also pretty fun, although sometimes it does feel like there's a bit too much going on. Although I think it's fun at times having these air battles with the 2 Banshees and a Wasp at both sides of the map, I think it would be a little better if there was only 1 Banshee and 1 Wasp, because like I say, it does get a bit manic, and a lot of the time it just revolves around like one team spawn killing the other with the absurd amount of vehicles they've acquired throughout the match. Although that being said, that's something that happens in normal Big Team Battle anyway. Still, Heavies was a nice addition. It was added as part of like the workshop playlist, which will be where we probably see a bunch of new variations of modes added in the future. But then Heavies was added permanently as a part of the normal BTB playlist, so now you have the chance of getting Heavies or normal Big Team Battle. Although some people aren't a huge fan of this, as sometimes people just want to play normal BTB or Heavies, I think this makes sense, especially with how the playlist is set up, as you have less of a chance of finding a game of either with both playlists coexisting. Although having them both in the same playlist definitely isn't ideal, because sometimes, yeah, you might not want to go on to play normal Big Team Battle, or you might not want to go on Heavies, and you end up getting one or the other. At the same time, like I say, it's a pretty understandable situation. But that does sum up all the main things as far as new game modes go. Season 3 was the first time we saw any new additions to the Sandbox. First of all, we had the Bandit Rifle, which is the return of the fan favourite DMR. This time it does function a little bit differently, playing more similarly to the Halo 5 Magnum. It's a pretty competent weapon at close to mid-range, but does struggle at the longer distances. The weapon doesn't have a scope like it does with its prior incarnations, but I think this, again, makes sense. We already have the Battle Rifle and the Commando, so giving the Bandit a scope as well just would feel kind of pointless. It would definitely make that area of the Sandbox feel oversaturated. The Bandit Rifle was also made the default starting weapon in normal Big Team Battle, and I think this was the right decision. It definitely helps the mode feel a little more casual compared to what it did before, with how sweaty things can get with the Sidekick. The Sidekick is an amazing fun weapon to use, but when everyone spawns with one, a lot of the time that is the only weapon people will use. I was also glad to see the Bandit did actually release with plenty of coatings available for it, some of which in the Battle Pass, some on the store, some in events. It was just nice to see the new weapon actually get some coatings. It was weird because it actually has 2 default ones. You have a green one and a grey one. The other new addition to the Sandbox was the Shroud Screen, and this is basically Halo's equivalent of a smoke grenade. It fires a bubble, and within that bubble, you can't see in or out. It's definitely a bit more useful than I initially thought it would be. It can definitely get you out of some tricky situations, or can make it pretty easy to flank enemy players. So it is actually quite a versatile tool. You can use it offensively or defensively. And although it isn't the most interesting piece of equipment that we've ever seen in a Halo game, it actually ended up being quite fun. The only thing that really let me down with these additions was the fact that there was no variant of the bandit rifle. Every other weapon has a weapon variant, and to see the bandit not get that treatment was a little disappointing. It would have been cool to have one that maybe just had like a slower rate of fire but a higher damage output, or maybe one that was fully automatic, or just something random like that. I definitely think Infinite would benefit from more weapon variants, especially in seasons where we don't get any new weapons at all. Like in Season 4, we know we're getting the Quantum Translocator and the Threat Seeker, so there's no new guns. This is fine, even if it's a little bit disappointing, but I feel like if they had weapon variants instead, there wouldn't really be any disappointments involved. Halo 5 did this with pretty much every update. You had a variety of new weapon variants, and although I don't expect it to get as many as Halo 5 did, at least one or two would be nice. Like, just give me a fully automatic sidekick or a skewer that does shock damage and EMPs vehicles. Just some fun wacky stuff to exist in Forge or in Big Team Battle, or in Super Fiesta. And with Sandbox additions, that does sum up most of the major things that happened during Season 3. There was a couple of other smaller additions too, like now you could play Rumble Pit with a couple of friends, which definitely helped that playlist out considering it's supposed to be a fun, casual playlist and you couldn't even play it with anyone other than yourself. It definitely helped the mode feel more social, and this again was another nice change, and hopefully we see the same treatment with other free-for-all playlists. I'm a little bit skeptical that I won't be able to join Infection with a big group of people. You'll probably be able to join with 4 players in your fire team. A little bit worried it won't be any more than that, but I guess time will tell. With that though, we've covered every new major addition with Halo Infinite Season 3, so the only thing left to do is give the season an overall rating. Season 3 was absolutely a step in the right direction. It did a lot of things right, improved on the narrative, it gave us some okay events, some cool cosmetics, it gave us 3 amazing new maps, a fun new game mode, we got some new Sandbox additions, and made a lot of changes that fans have been wanting for quite some time. That being said though, I don't think any of these additions were as impactful as the Winter Update, at least not for me personally. Although the Winter Update definitely had its fair share of issues, it did give us stuff like Co-op Campaign and Forge, and although yes, you can make the argument those things should have been there at launch, at the same time, as far as updates go, the Winter Update was amazing, so was Season 3, but I don't think it's been my favourite update in the game. Overall, I'd give Season 3 an 8 out of 10. I've had a lot of fun with the season, and some of the new content was great. Like I say, Oasis is easily currently the best Big Team Battle map in the game, the new arena maps were fun, having a new weapon was great, and actually having some solid narrative events was also a pleasant surprise. But that does wrap up everything to talk about today. Let me know what you think of Season 3 down in the comments, and if you're excited for Season 4. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.